is the day that the Lord has made. Ladies and gentlemen, let us rejoice and be glad indeed. Just to thank God for making us being all alive today, given that many people were not opportune to see this day. And of course, it is the very first edition of Viewpoint on DBS television, beginning today, Monday. Talking with us concerning issues in the Northwest and the Southwest region, as well as the coronavirus pandemic. We are having a guest with us here in the studio. He is not new to us, and of course to you as well. We are talking of Kimbang Vitalis. He is a civil society activist. Good evening to you, Mr. Kimbang, and thank you very much for being part of us.
Good evening, Vanessa. Good evening, televiewers. It's my pleasure to be here once more to discuss these things that are affecting our society.
Thank you. Mange Venashus, good evening and a happy week start.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers. I was saying that I was happy with your religious attitude in the beginning of this program.
All right.
Thanking God for another new day.
It's obvious. Let us take the first part of the show, that is the yes or no and answer question. Our first question for tonight: should a ceasefire be imposed in the Northwest region and the Southwest region? I begin with you, Vitalis.
No.
No. Mange Venashus?
Yes, Vanessa, it should.
Yes, it should. Question 2: should the crisis in the above regions be solved through a mediation? I begin with you, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Mange Venashus?
Yes, Vanessa.
Yes. And our last question for tonight: should African traditional medicine be taught in our universities? Mange Venashus?
No, Vanessa.
No.
Yes.
Mange Venashus?
No.
No. And to you, Mr. Kimber?
Yes.
Yes, it should be taught. All right. Let us come back setting the pace for the debate. In our first question, we asked, should a ceasefire be imposed in the Northwest and the Southwest region? Vitalis, you said no, it should not be imposed in this region. Over 4 years of a crisis in these regions, and you think that it is not time for arms to be dropped and come for an effective dialogue or discussion?
Now, if you say drop of arms, yes, I will say yes. But if you say a ceasefire should be imposed, that's where I have a problem. Because the only person that has the knife and the yam as far as this crisis is concerned is President Paul Biya. Why do I say so? I say so because this crisis is being viewed from different angles by different communities. Now, when you look at the separatist fighters, they look at this crisis like a country that has invaded another country. That is, French La République du Cameroon has invaded British southern Cameroons. Then the international bodies and other foreign countries, they look at this crisis in the Northwest and Southwest like an internal crisis. So when you say impose ceasefire, who is going to do it? Because at this juncture, the international bodies, they believe that the crisis in the Northwest and the Southwest, as I've earlier said, is an internal affair. Then when you have to look at it too, you will discover that the fighting that is taking place in the Northwest and Southwest, we have so many armed groups, and some of these armed groups are not even identified at all. Some of them are rooks that have taken advantage of this crisis, and they are causing havoc in the whole of Northwest and Southwest. Then when you look in also amongst the separatist fighters, we have the group of Samuel Ekome Sako, the Restoration Forces, we have the AGF of Ayabacho, we have the group of Ebenezer Akangwa, we have Eric Tato, and a host of others. And these groups are operating in the Northwest and Southwest, and none of them agrees with another. Meaning that if we are calling for a ceasefire, practically it is going to be very, very, it might be difficult, but
there's a possibility.
The possibility. Mm-hmm. And it is only the head of state, President of the Republic, that can do it, not the international community.
not the international community.
Yes.
Just simply saying that a ceasefire should not be imposed. Now you just gave the view how the international community looks at the crisis and how the separatists themselves they look at the crisis. But you, as a civil society activist, how do you look at the crisis?
No, I look at the crisis from the point of an internal crisis. Because I, for one, I stand for us to go back to 1961 Federation, because that is the only thing that can solve this problem of the Northwest and Southwest. Then going by it now, as I earlier said, it is very, very, very difficult, because what the separatists are saying as far as this crisis are concerned, they are not even ready for a federation. Their main aim is independence of Southern Cameroon. So, since the international body, maybe for now, they have not seen that feasible, it is very, very difficult for them maybe to impose a ceasefire now, because they are still looking at it as an
internal crisis.
Yes, owing to the fact that there are also many armed groups over there that are neither recognized by the separatists nor the government, who are operating and extorting money from people. They are kidnapping people and they are doing all sorts of evil. So now, if you ask government forces to go back to the barracks, what becomes of the population and their property? So obviously, the government forces must be there to check these excesses. What I can only advise is that the government should try to limit civilian casualties, because we have had a lot of civilian casualties in the Northwest and the Southwest. Sometimes you hear that people were mistakenly killed, and at this juncture, the population now are caught in between these two forces. They don't know whether to run to the government or to run to the Amazonian restoration forces for safety.
Thank you for your viewpoint, Vitalis. Mange Venasius, you think that a ceasefire should be imposed in these regions? Why?
Exactly, Vanessa. A ceasefire should be imposed in the Northwest and Southwest region, and the crisis going on. Remember, about 2 weeks ago, this crisis was considered as one of the most neglected crises in the world. Now, I was looking at this question with an analogy, asking you, if your neighbor has a fight with the wife, you don't have, normally that is what we know, you don't have a right to go into their quarrel, into their quarrel. You don't have to mingle. It is a family issue, an internal issue. But if it reaches a point where you discover that the life of that woman is at risk, the life of that husband is at risk, or even the life of the child is at risk, I think moral law permits you, allows you to probe into that quarrel because you want to save a life. Because if you allow it and somebody dies, you are indirectly responsible for that death, because you could save that life. I bring it to this crisis. We have been into this crisis for practically 4 years, and more than 3 times the head of state, Paul Biya, has called on the separatists to lay down their arms. Nothing has happened. We went through the major national dialogue, nothing has happened. We went through the formation of commissions, nothing has happened. We went through the formation of the DDR commission, nothing has happened. We are not talking about the reconstruction plan, which is on the field. We don't know whether anything will happen. But then the whole issue of imposing a ceasefire in the Northwest and Southwest region is within the context of the coronavirus, when the Secretary General of the United Nations called on all conflict zones, crisis areas within this pandemic to lay down their arms, to call for a ceasefire, so that the population and even the fighters, even the military, they could be able to curb or to avoid the spread of the virus. Cameroon was not the only country. But then, what the problem is that we have in Cameroon is, like Mr. Kambang is saying, there are We have the separatist fighters on one side, we have the military on the other side, and we have some rogues, some thieves in between. They are neither the separatists, they are neither the military, but they want to take advantage of the crisis and are extorting money from the population. That is no problem at all, because if the military lays down their arm, the separatists lay down their arm, these other people whom I qualify them as thieves, they are of course, they are actually, because they can control them. I would not understand if the secessionists, the military, and the international community, they can force pressure on these boys to stop. We have this crisis, this kind of groups, we don't have them only in the northwest and the southwest region. They exist in other parts of the country, and thus we refer to them as thieves. They are outlawed citizens, and any sanction can be imposed on them to make sure that they stop. We are talking of a ceasefire. Vanessa, you need to go to this region. Movement is not that easy, because you can be caught by crossfire between the military and the separatists. How would you handle such a situation? That's why we think that the international organization, international body can come in now, because you don't need to say that your family matter is above you.
If you are talking of the international body to come in and mediate, Mr. Kimba.
Yes, when you talk about international bodies, you see that part of the money that was given for this construction of the Northwest and the Southwest was given by the World Bank or something like that, or African Development Bank, meaning that they still consider the crisis as an internal issue until the Cameroon government says that it is above us, that we cannot more contain these people. That is when the international body will come in. The international body does not pick up guns and start coming. First, you know that if the international body has to impose a ceasefire.
We are gradually entering into the second question. Since you are talking about international bodies, should a crisis in the above regions be solved through a mediation? And you think that, yes, it should be solved through a mediation?
Yes.
Talking about these international bodies.
Even if we fight for 100 years, at the end of it all, we have to sit on the table and talk like brothers and sisters. Because there is no, even if you fight with your wife, at the end of it all, you must reconcile. And reconciling meaning what? You have to sit and dialogue. So we must mediate, we must negotiate. More dialogue.
Who are those that could help mediate between these two groups?
That is where the problem is coming from now. Because when you look at what the first of all said about the Swiss talks, the Swiss negotiations with the French Cameroon and British Southern Cameroon, there was a rumor like they wanted to have this thing, a mediation. But the problem now was some other groups in the diaspora, they refused that they were not going to be part of that negotiation, that they were going to fight till they get their independence, and that independence is not given by in a platter of gold. So when you look at these two groups, it's conflicting, but it doesn't cancel the fact that this crisis can be solved through a negotiation, because that is the best way that we can solve this crisis. So
should the UN come in? Should the AU come in?
Yes, they can come in.
Because if we are talking now about mediation, then there should be somebody that either the government is thinking about or the separatists that will be able to control both of them on the table to discuss.
Yes, and this mediation, since the trust that we have for each other is no more there, if we say the mediation should only be between British Southern Cameroon and the French La République du Cameroun, as the separatists are calling it, it's not going to work. Because when you look what happened in Yaoundé, the separatist leaders were invited, but since they doubted their security, their safety, they refused to come. Meaning that if there was a superpower, another superpower, that was mediating between them, actually they would have come. And that this mediation should take place in the neutral ground, because there are many separatist leaders in Europe and America who will never step their foot in Cameroon except this crisis is over. So if you call them for a mediation in Cameroon, they will never come because they don't trust the Cameroon government. We have even heard of how some of them who came for the national dialogue were locked up for some time before being released. So that has scared many of them. And so if we talk about mediation, that mediation, according to what I get from them, must be done in a neutral
Vitalis, maybe you should explain more to our televiewers. By a neutral ground, meaning that out of Cameroon, it should be some other people that will broker the talks.
Yes, like the Swiss government wanted to mediate. If the talks, if the mediation is taking place, let's say in America or in Europe, the separatist fighters will now know that no, they cannot easily be picked up and taken to Kunenge, so they will not come on the table. But you ask them to come to Yaoundé for negotiations. Since they don't trust the Cameroon government, as I've earlier said, none of them will step their foot here, because they know that if they comes and the talks does not go well, all of them will end up in Kunenge.
Mange Venashus, you are supporting Vitalis' point tonight that a mediation should be done between the government and the independent fighters.
And I'll answer your question from question 1 to question 2, because when we're talking of a ceasefire, it means ceasefire does not mean solving the crisis. When we ceased
it's
the
a
fire,
way forward.
Correct. When the war has stopped, then we can talk of mediation in a way to solve the crisis. Given the fact that we cannot impose ceasefire in the crisis, and the powers that have the possibility to stop the war have tried, I use the word tried and failed, because I don't think that there is any president who can allow such a crisis in his country, in her country, close to 4 years, with people dying. We don't want to talk about the economic implication of this crisis. Just the fact that lives are being lost on a daily basis, nobody will want this crisis to continue. And if we are still dragging on for close to 4 years, it means we have tried and we have not succeeded. That is why I am still of the opinion that we should impose the ceasefire, then a mediation comes in. Mediating the crisis would, because mediation can take place in 3 forms. It can be either the international community, when we're talking of foreign countries, European countries. It can be an all-African affair, which means African countries, or it can be a purely Cameroonian affair. But given the context, like Mr. Kambang was indicating, that the crisis where we have gone to, I would prefer an African mediation rather than a European mediation, because from what we've had down our history, European countries coming to Africa to mediate, coming to Cameroon to mediate for any peace talks, comes, with a hidden agenda. They have their interest. So I would not have wished that we can talk of France, we can talk of Britain, we can talk of America coming to intervene. Even Switzerland that we're talking of, they struggled and they had, they asked for an amount. So we should keep them aside. I don't want to talk about Cameroonian issue, because like he is saying, if we take Cameroonian issue, we will not convince the separatists that they are safe. And in that case, the mediation will not be genuine. I remember one Cameroonian, one Northwesterner, I'm talking of Barrister Nico Halley. He called on Cameroonians that if we want a way forward for this crisis, we need to be sincere. We need to be truthful. And you see that idea of sincerity and truthfulness is lacking from the whole management of this crisis so far. I take the example, the major national dialogue. Now, if we want to talk, let's take African leaders. We can take old African leaders, or there are African personalities who can command authority. Authority is not by force, just their personality commands some type of authority. And for this mediation to take place, the body mediating should be neutral. Once it is neutral, it can mediate and it will solve the crisis.
So I presumably you're proposing the AU.
Not the AU, because the AU is a European teleguided organization. It is not for Africans.
That's your point of view.
Yes. Not my point of view.
It's your point of view. They are working for the interests of Africans.
That is what they say. But if you look at the budget of AU, comes from EU, which means they cannot work to the detriment of he who sponsors them. Who would pay their transport to come to Cameroon? It will be EU. And when they come to Cameroon, they cannot work against the EU. So I don't mean the African Union. They can select, I said, influential personalities.
Mr. Mange, you are contradicting yourself when you say they should impose a ceasefire.
Yes.
And you don't stand with the AU.
Yes.
Who should not impose that ceasefire?
When we say impose the ceasefire, then mediation can come in. It doesn't mean he who imposes the ceasefire should impose or should mediate. The ceasefire was called for by the Secretary General of the United Nations. That was just a normal issue. And once they have not respected, if if the United Nations imposes the ceasefire and the war ceases, now these African personalities, if you want me to cite, I will talk of old presidents in Africa, former presidents. They can come in, mediate, because we believe that Africans will not have they will not have an interest like European countries will do.
The thing is that, Mr. Mange, even if you say they should mediate in Africa, many of them will not, separatists will not come because they don't first of all trust African leaders. The separatist leaders are in Kondege today. They were picked up from Nigeria. And the Nigerian government broke all the international laws governing refugees, brought them and locked them in Kondege. How far would they be sure that if they are to mediate in any African countries, the same thing will not happen to them?
That was just Nigeria alone. I wouldn't think that Nigeria would accept to go against such international laws. South Africa would accept. Rwanda will accept. Zimbabwe will accept. I mean, when there are 3-4 countries, you will not be easy to manipulate them. But just Cameroon alone, Yaoundé and Abuja, they are able to manipulate and do whatever they want. But Yaoundé will not be able to manipulate 5, 6, 10 African leaders. Remember, there are personalities who would never want to soil their names in the handling of this crisis. So, if we take them, they would be able to mediate and they can solve the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions.
All right, while you're taking a breath, let us take our third question with Kimbang tonight. Should African traditional medicine be taught in our universities? And Mr. Kimbang, you think that yes, it should be taught, given within this, like the coronavirus pandemic came as an eye-opener to our form of traditional medicine? Yes,
Vanessa, you will discover that we Africans, we have a lot of talent as far as the medical field is concerned. When you look at the corona pandemic, African might has been shown as far as this pandemic is concerned. We'll start with Madagascar. Look at what happened in Madagascar. We didn't hear about up to 10 people dying in Madagascar, but what was used there was their traditional medicine. In Cameroon, we have Cleda and other, Dr. Fu and the rest of the people. Even when we talk about this coronavirus, yes, there are sometimes that we have symptoms of those coronavirus, and we compose our own drugs, our own herbs, and it works. Yes, I know that if I have catarrh and I have cough, I take ginger, and I take bitter cola, and I take sugar, and mix it, and I eat it, and I'll be fine. So if we have to extend these things and teach them in schools, we are going to be super. We are going to be more than most European countries. The thing is that Europe has made it in such a way that anything that comes from us is evil. So they discourage us in all aspects to make sure that nothing good comes from us. Awesome. But as far as traditional medicine is concerned, I think we should start
teaching the young ones.
The young ones, in both from nursery school right up to university, that if you have catarrh and cough, you do this. If you have this, you do this. Because I quite remember growing up with my grandmother in the village. She knew a lot of so many traditional medicine that whenever I had a common disease, she would just pick them up and I would be fine. Why would I not encourage that such things to be taught in school? So for me, I think that bringing those teaching African traditional medicine in school is a very laudable initiative, which I believe that all Africans should embrace and start practicing immediately.
All right, Mange Venatius, you're talking about the contrary. It should not be taught in our universities. Why so? Given that it's for the benefit or the interest of the entire population.
Actually, it is for the benefit of the population. But then, we are in Africa and Cameroon. Given the way we have the makeup, what makes up Cameroon? Cameroon is a complex, so complex a country. And when we talk of this African traditional medicine, you know the herbs that we use. What is the very herbs? I take, for example, pawpaw leaves that is used in my village. It treats a particular illness. In another village, it treats a different thing. you know, you take eucalyptus, it treats a different thing. So each community has their own particular illness that it could be the same herb, but treats different illnesses in different, depending in the localities. They may use in treating, curing the tooth, maybe headache, maybe fever, all this, depending on where we are. But then the problem in Africa, in Cameroon, about traditional medicine is, the first thing we need to start with is codification. We need to codify these medicines, these herbs, so that we know that if we take eucalyptus, let it be for the treatment of headache or malaria.
You know that we cannot use one form of medicine to treat one particular illness. Is that possible?
There are herbs that can treat multiple diseases. Not one. There are many herbs that can treat multiple diseases. So we don't say that since eucalyptus treat this, it must only be treating that one. No, we have herbs that can treat as many diseases as possible.
Actually, and that's why I said that these herbs, they become a confusion, because in as much as there are many communities, you are in this university, you are treating eucalyptus is treating it cures malaria, whereas in another university they will say eucalyptus cure fever. Which is which? It becomes a confusion.
They are going to bring them together.
That is why I say that's why I say we need to start from codifying them. Let us make what the Frenchman calls a repertoire. We cannot
codify them without bringing out a curriculum that we're going to guide it. Yes.
Okay. So when we bring out, before coming out with that curriculum, we need to know what will be treated in which university. Once we come out with these very herbs that we will use this, then we start from there and then we progress. But as of now, if we have to start teaching it, we start plunge us into confusion, into errors, rather than, so we should first codify them, put them in quotes. Let's know that this treats this, rather than saying this can treat. When somebody is sick of malaria, you just not take anything and give the person. So we need to codify them, and then we start from there and develop their curriculum, their syllabuses to be taught in our universities.
All right, thank you very much, Mange Venatius. Maybe one word to our televiewers before we close concerning the coronavirus pandemic. How are people or the people in your field helping the community to fight this virus?
Vanessa, I think that we just need to call on the people to develop the fear they had for coronavirus when it started, because we are increasing by the day. So we need to develop that fear that we had when it first came to Cameroon in March. If not, the future may be very gloomy.
Maybe very gloomy. And to you, Vitalis?
Yes, Vanessa, if you want to talk about coronavirus again, many people know that coronavirus is over. So the fear is no more there. You're going to start talking about coronavirus, you're like throwing water on the deck's back. So I don't think that people are still taking those measures serious again. But
they should. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of us tonight. Mange Venatius, and to you, Kimbang Vitalis. Thank you also, ladies and gentlemen, for watching us tonight. Tomorrow is another day. Do not forget that coronavirus is real, is existing, and numbers keep increasing in Cameroon. So make sure you respect the various barrier measures to fight or to stem the spread. Until we come your way again tomorrow, do have a blessed evening.